Hi, everybody. My name is Lisa Stoll, and I'm the librarian at Warren County Community College. Today, I'm going to give you a brief presentation about finding, evaluating, and using information for academic research. So first, let's talk about what I mean by finding, evaluating, and using. So as a student, you need to be able to do these three things when you're doing any kind of research for class, whether it's for a discussion board post, a homework assignment, a paper, or a presentation. So first, you need to be able to find sources, and that means a variety of different kinds of sources. Everything from using the internet and the different resources that are available there to using the library's databases. It's important that you understand the process of looking for information. Second, you need to be able to evaluate the information you find. The reason this is important is because if you don't use the right information, there's a good chance you might get points off on an assignment or a paper, or you might get a 0 on an assignment or a paper because you haven't used the correct resources. It's really important that you look at what your professor has told you in terms of what kind of resources you should use for your assignments. And then you'll know if you need to go to web pages and evaluate them, or if you need to use the databases. And we'll talk about using the databases and how you evaluate the databases later on. Three, you need to be able to use that information. And when we talk about using information, we're talking about doing it legally and ethically. So that includes being able to cite things correctly and not plagiarizing, whether it's by accident or on purpose. So first, let's talk about using the internet for research. I have heard from some students that they were told, like in high school and things like that, to not use the web for academic resources for your school projects, papers, etc. However, I'm not going to tell you that. Again, it's important that you as a student understand what your professor wants. So you need to make sure you understand what kind of resources you're allowed to use or you're supposed to use for an assignment. So, for example, I've seen papers where their students are told they need to have 5 resources, and 3 of those resources need to be peer-reviewed or scholarly or from academic journals. All right, that leaves you the other 2 resources can be anything that you can find, and that includes web pages. But if you're not sure, always double check with your professor so that you are clear as to what kind of resources you can use for assignments and stuff. So when you are using the web, and I'm not saying don't use it, but when you do use it, you need to critically evaluate any website you want to cite in your papers or your homework assignments, your discussion board, et cetera, et cetera. So I always tell students to ask these 3 things. The first is who. You need to know who is publishing the information you're looking at. You need to know who's writing that information. And it's really great if you can find out if they have any expertise in that subject. In other words, what kind of experience do they have that might make them an expert in that area? That could be years and years of working in that field or working, with that particular subject. It could be college degrees, different things like that. But the reason you need to know these things is because there are a ton of web pages out there without authors. It doesn't tell you who wrote it. And while I'm on that subject, I can tell you right now that you should never, ever use blogs in your research. Never use a blog as a source in your research because of the fact that while sometimes they do have names on them, oftentimes you have to be really careful because usually they're giving opinions and their thoughts and things like that. So it's really important that you don't use blogs. So it's important to understand who is putting out that web page and then look at what makes them an expert and if they give you the name of the writer. That's extremely helpful. The second question you need to ask is why? What is the purpose behind that website? And is there any bias going on? So purpose, the majority of web pages that you come across are going to be trying to sell you something. So that could be trying to sell you a product, trying to sell you a subscription service, could also be trying to sell you an idea. And that's where we get into bias. Now, everybody in the world, every single person has a bias. You and I all have bias. And it's not a bad thing. A bias is not a bad thing. A bias just means that you feel really strongly about something. And so you have a specific opinion about it. So, but it's not a bad thing. The only problem is that when you're doing academic research, you want to find sources that are the least bias, okay? Or if possible, has no bias at all. And their intention is just to inform. So it's important that you look to see if somebody's trying to sell you on an idea that maybe they feel strongly about, which again, there's nothing wrong with that, but that's not the kind of source you want to use for academic research. And finally, I tell students to ask when. When was it published? When was it updated? And this is extremely important in in fields that are science related or part of the soft sciences, which include like sociology, psychology, education, criminal justice, areas like that. You want to really be paying attention to the dates. And the reason that that's important is because those fields are rapidly changing. And generally, when you're working within those fields, you don't want any information that is older than 5 years. An example, of course, is what we're seeing right now in our present life. If you were doing a blog post, or excuse me, a discussion board post about the coronavirus, you don't want to use resources that came out 4 or 5 weeks ago, because this virus is rapidly changing and we're learning new things about it all the time as doctors discover different things about the virus. So it would be important to use the most up-to-date information if that's what you're writing about. And that applies through all of those kinds of fields, is that you really look at that date and see when it was last published. So when you're finding information on the internet, you want to be careful to use reputable sources or credible sources. So keep in mind, when you're on Google and you put in a search topic, most of us don't go past that first page on Google, right? We'll pick a page that's on that first page of results. However, you have to be careful of that, because often those are listed by 2 ways on Google. First, it's by popularity, what people have looked at the most, what has the most clicks, but also some web pages get paid by Google per click, or they pay Google per click. So if you click on a site that is hooked up with Google, that every click somebody makes on their web page, Google gets like 10 cents, then you're actually helping Google make more money, which is not a bad thing. That's what they're there to do. But just keep in mind that Google is a company. It is making money. Its goal is to make money. So try looking beyond the first page. You might find some better resources if you do. And just keep in mind that I always tell students to trust your gut instinct. If something does not look like it's reputable or credible, then don't use it. Okay, if you see a lot of ads on it, on the web page itself, don't use it, because that's not going to be a credible source. All right, so just pay attention to those things when you're actually searching for information on the web and you're trying to find resources. And then once you find a resource, make sure you go through these steps to evaluate the resource that you're looking at, because that way you're double checking to make sure that what you're using is the most reputable, most credible for your academic research. Now keep in mind that if you don't use the right sources, again, that can affect your GPA, because what's going to happen is, let's say you don't use the right sources on a paper, you get points off for not using the right sources, that brings your grade down for that paper, and maybe that paper is worth 30% of your final grade. So if you get points down and it's worth 30% of your final grade, that's going to bring your class grade down, which in turn will bring down your GPA. And your GPA is really important to maintain, especially if you want to transfer to other colleges, because they're going to look at that GPA and they're going to pick people who have the highest GPAs to get into their programs. So just keep in mind that using the right kind of sources is not just a requirement or part of the citation style you're using or part of what your professor wants you to do, but it's also part of your bottom line, your GPA. So now we've talked about finding and evaluating information on the web. So let's look at what I call the alternative, which are the WCCC databases. So when you're using the databases, the reason that they're important and they play a big role in your research as a student is a couple of things. Number one, it has more reputable resources than you'll find on the internet. Number two, you have the ability, when you're using the databases, to narrow your searches by peer-reviewed articles, scholarly articles, and academic articles. And that's important. Anytime your professor tells you that they want you to use a scholarly resource, they want you to use a peer-reviewed resource, or they want you to use an academic journal resource, they're telling you, without telling you, that you need to use the databases. And the reason is, if something is peer-reviewed from an academic journal and is scholarly, That means that the credibility is already built into the article, because the peer review process means that people within that particular field have looked at the author's work and they have ensured that the work and the research and everything involved in it is credible prior to it being published. So when you're looking at it and your professors are looking at it, they can trust in the information you get from those kinds of articles. And that's really important because, again, that will affect your bottom line, your GPA, if you're not using the right kind of sources. So I always tell students that it's best to look in the databases first and try to find the credible sources that are there, and then use the web-based sources second. And that's just because you might find everything you need and the amount of sources that you need by using the databases, and then you don't have to worry about evaluating them because it's already been done for you. So let's look at how to use the databases. To get to the libraries page, you go to www.warren.edu and you click all the way on the right where it says library, and it brings you to the library's homepage. Keep in mind that these tabs, the order of the tabs and the names of the tabs, or not the names, but excuse me, the tabs might change. For example, I had to put up a new tab for Corona resources, and so when I put this new tab here, it moves all the other tabs down. But the name of the tab for the databases will never change, and that tab will say Library Online Resources. So you're going to click here. One thing I want to put out, I know a lot of students who try to do a search here for library resources. That's not going to work for you because it's just searching the web page. So you're not going to find articles or anything by searching through here. And I've tried to get rid of that search box and I haven't been successful, but I'm still going to work on it. But you do not want to search here. You want to go ahead and search for your articles by going to the Library Online Resources tab, and you click right on the tab, and it opens up our databases page. So at the school, we have 3 databases, but that is misleading because this first one, EBSCO Discovery Service, actually contains multiple smaller databases within it. And it's just a service that allows you to search through all those databases at once rather than having to search each one individually. EBSCO is also where you'll find ebooks. It's where you're going to get your peer-reviewed journal articles. It also contains newspaper articles and just thousands and thousands of resources for you. So that's our biggest and best database. It covers just about every subject you're going to have while you're at the college. Bloom's Literature Database is exactly how it sounds. It's a literature database, and it's used for literature classes such as Comp 2, American Lit, and Brit Lit. Keep in mind, though, this database is now also contained within EBSCO. So you really don't have to search this separately. You can go through EBSCO and you'll find all the same articles in EBSCO that you would find by doing a search here. But you'll find more through EBSCO because it does contain other literature databases within it. Finally, we have the Gale Interactive Human Anatomy. And this is actually a 3D database that has all different things about the human body, including the systems, the bones, all that good stuff is in there. And for students who are studying for A&P 1 or 2, nursing, pre-nursing, medical assisting, and even human bio, this site is a great study resource for you because it does give you that 3D image, and it also helps you to see how the different parts fit together, as well as giving you small lessons that you can have read out loud about different systems in the body. You can even move parts and break it apart and things like that. There is a note here at the bottom that I want you all to be aware of, and it says, please note, this database does not work with any version of Internet Explorer or Microsoft Edge. Chrome or Mozilla Firefox are recommended. This is true for just about all of the resources that Warren County Community College has. So for example, if you're in My Warren and you're using Internet Explorer, I've seen students have problems downloading like PowerPoint slides or information because it doesn't work well within these 2 programs. Chrome and Firefox are always going to be your best bet, and even for those of you who are using Macs, Safari does not work as well with our resources as Chrome or Firefox. So these are actual links where you can download either Chrome or Firefox from this page if you want to. If you're not sure how to get those free web browsers, they are here for you. But you can also just Google them and you should be able to come up with the download. So for the purposes of today's presentation, I'm going to go ahead and just go into EBSCO Discovery Service because, as I said, it's our largest database. It's the one you're going to use most, and it covers every subject. So you click on the title, and then it's going to bring you to this page. This is where you're going to log in to the database. And the login information is what we call your network or email account. And going back over here, if you go to the libraries page, under usernames and passwords, it tells you what your student network and email account is. And if you have any problems with that, let me see here. It gives you the information to contact IT, and they can help you if you're having any problems with the login. I just want to share that with you now. You just can call them at support, or excuse me, email them support@warren.edu, and they can help you via the computer during the hours that they're open, because they still are maintaining normal business hours. So your username is going to be your first initial last name. It's not going to be your ID number. And then your password, it starts out as your 2-digit month of birth, 2-digit day of birth, last 4 of your social security number. If you haven't changed the password for this login, then it should still be that. And this is the same login you use to access your student email. It's also how you would access the Wi-Fi when we're on campus. It's how you log into the computers on campus, and how you log into the library's printers. So it's the same username and password. It's all the same account. So when you put your information in, go ahead and hit login. And it's going to bring you to this general search box area, just like you would have for any of your search engines. So the difference between this search box and what you would find in, say, Google, is that this is going to be a keyword search. Okay, so you're going to be using keywords. You can't put a whole phrase in here. You can't put in a question, because it won't work. Trust me, you'll get weird results and very few results, or sometimes you might get no results. So you want to use the keyword search. And a keyword search, let me just show you this real quick, how that looks like. Oh, wrong page. It's got to be over here then. So a keyword search looks like this, okay? You have a topic that you're going to be talking about. And from that, and sometimes it is a question that you want to answer with whatever your assignment is. Sometimes it's a question you've been given as an assignment. And you want to go ahead and look up the keywords from that. You don't want to look up the entire sentence, because again, you're not going to get the results you want. So you want to pick out the keywords. And this shows you what that looks like. So when I'm over here, today I want to search for zombies. So I've been given an assignment in sociology where I had to describe how zombies have affected popular culture. Okay, so I could put in zombies and popular culture, and you're going to see when I'm in here, that's going to pop up. See, zombies and popular culture. But I'm going to start with just zombies as a broad search topic. And that's what I recommend you do for all your searches. Start with something broad, because I'm going to show you how you can narrow that down further once you're in the databases. However, I have seen students who have been given assignments such as write a paper about some area of psychology that we've either talked about in class or you've read in your book. And a student will come here and put in psychology. That is way too broad. Can you imagine how much is out there just with the term psychology? Wow, it's a crap load of information. So start with something broad, but not something too broad, okay? You don't want to get crazy. But keep in mind that the more narrow your search is, the fewer results you're going to get. And that could not be helpful when you're actually looking for research. So I'm going to start out with zombies, keeping in mind that my assignment is to write a paper about how zombies have affected popular culture. But I'm just going to start out with my keywords zombies and hit search. And so I'm going to get all these results. So we have, what is this? Almost 58,000 results that have to do with zombies. And that's crazy, right? That's how many articles there are out there about zombies. Now you're going to get things like periodicals, ebooks, and an ebook works just like your Cengage books. You just view it online and you go to the PDF full text, and it will bring up the book for you, and you can search through it and everything like that. What are the results? You might get academic journals, periodicals again. Sometimes you even get some strange videos, as you can see here. Wow, those people look pretty scary. Anyway, you get all kinds of different results. Now remember when we were talking about evaluating information, and I mentioned that one of the best things about the databases was that it has a feature that allows you to use peer-reviewed or to find just peer-reviewed, scholarly, or academic resources. And that's really important because then you don't have to evaluate those resources to see if they're credible. It's already been done for you. So we do that by going over to the left-hand side. This is the area, this whole left-hand area, where we can break down our results even further from our keyword search here. So right here, it tells you what my current search information is. It tells you the search term I'm using, zombies. Under expanders, it automatically includes apply equivalent subjects. So that means anything, any idea or key term that is close to zombie, it's going to include. And it also has search within the full text of the article. That means that it's not just going to look for the word zombie in the titles of the article, it's also going to look within the text of the article, because sometimes the title of the article might not be or might not include zombie in it, but the article itself might be about zombies. Sometimes titles can be misleading. Now, under limiters, it has this automatically in there as well, available in the library collection. You never want to undo that. And you can see under limit 2, it's already checked here for you. Don't undo that, because if you do, that means you're going to get resources that you do not have full text access to. So you want to make sure that what you're looking at is what's available in the library collection, because that means the set of articles and databases that we as a college have subscribed to. And if you go outside of that, you're going to get a lot of information that you won't have access to, and that's never a good thing. It's very frustrating when you're a student and you're researching stuff. So under limit 2, if we were to choose catalog only, that would show you the physical items that are available at the WCCC library, which of course is not really helpful right now. Now here's where you can limit to scholarly peer-reviewed journals. And again, that's what we're looking for, because that means that we don't have to check the credibility of the resources that we're looking at. We don't have to evaluate them to make sure that they're credible. So you can go ahead and click that. And what it does then, it updates the results. So we started out with like almost 58,000 articles. Now we have just a little over 7,000. So you can see I started with a broad topic, but now I'm breaking my search down and refining the search to get more of what it is I actually want. Now the other thing you can do under the limit 2 is that you can limit the date. According to this, they have articles about zombies in this database or in this collection going back to 1943. Now, I'm doing a sociology paper, which remember I said is one of those soft sciences, and so I really only want to go back 5 years. So you can go ahead and just manually delete that date and put in the date 2015, that would be 5 years, and hit enter. And so again, it's going to repopulate our results, and now we went from 58,000 to 2,477 results, just by adding a few different limiters to our search. And as you see, this box right here gets bigger as we add more things to it. Now, under source type, I would always recommend you go ahead and click academic journals, because these other kinds of sources aren't going to be nearly as helpful as academic journals are. So you click on that. And it's not going to break it down much further. Okay, so now it's 2,241 results, but still, that's a big difference from what we started out with, because nobody in their right mind wants to look through 58,000 articles for the information they need for a paper. And we've limited it to scholarly peer-reviewed journals that are available to us, published within the last 5 years, and in academic journals. Now the next thing you can do is under subject, because if you're still not happy with the results you're getting, you can go down to subject. You go to show more here at the bottom. And I like to do it alphabetical, sort everything, the results alphabetically by name. And this breaks it down even further. So under the heading zombies, you can add a subheading that will break down your articles even further and give you more specific topics that might align with what you're looking for. So remember, I said popular culture. So go down to P, Right there, there it is. So if I click popular culture, it already tells me I'm only going to have 48 articles. That's so much better than 58,000, right? So I click update, and there we go. So now I have 48 articles. They're all about zombies, okay? They're all scholarly or peer-reviewed, which means I don't have to worry about the credibility. They're all available to me. They're published within the last 5 years. They're coming from academic journals, and they have the subtopic popular culture. Yay! And you can usually see that reflected when you're looking at these articles, and it gives you these subject terms, zombies and popular culture. That's it, finding exactly what I asked it to find. Keep in mind, the databases are not perfect. You might get some weird results. I'll be honest with you. You might get some really weird results that have nothing to do with what you're searching for. That happens. It's just a computer program. It's not perfect. It's going to make mistakes. So just keep in mind, don't just be discouraged by that. Just keep searching. And by the way, the more you change up your keyword search, you might get different kinds of results. So don't just stick with one keyword search. If you're not finding what you need or what you want, change it up a bit. See what other words you can use. See what other keywords might be able to be incorporated into your search. So I'm just going to go cyborgs next door. I wonder if they can make zombie dogs, but that are not really zombies, but are made out of like robots. Oh, anyway, sorry. So here we go. The science fiction. Oh, you know what though? There's no zombies in that one. See, you always have to look. You never know what you're going to get. All right, so this one has both things that I'm looking for, and it's about how theater and zombies and things like that. So let's go ahead. If I see an article I want to look at, I just click on the title. And it takes you to this page that's called the detailed record page. And it essentially gives you everything you're going to need, all the bibliographic information to create a citation, whether it's APA or MLA. It gives you the author, the source, the volume and issue number, where it was published, page numbers, the year of publication. And sometimes you might find that it gives you an abstract. An abstract will give you a brief idea, a very brief idea usually, of what is in the article, but it won't give you everything. So scrolling back up on the left-hand side, I'm on the detailed record now, but I have access to the HTML full text, which is going to look just like a web page. It's going to be simple, plain text, just like on a web page. Or I can look at the PDF full text. So I highly recommend, if you're given the choice, to go ahead and look at the PDF full text, and let me show you why. So I'm going to click on PDF. It's going to come up right in my screen. And when I'm looking at this, the one thing that it includes that the HTML full text will not include is page numbers. All right, page numbers are important for both APA and MLA when you're doing in-text citation. So that's the nice thing about looking at the PDF full text. It will give you the page numbers you can use for your citations, and that is extremely helpful. Now, once you've found the article, you can read it here. I highly recommend that you either download the article onto your device, okay, as a PDF file, or you can go ahead and save it as a PDF file to your Google Drive. I recommend that you do one of those two things so that you always have that article that you can look back to. Because if you use the URL that's up here to try to find that article again, you might run into problems. And more often than not, you run into problems and it's not going to work right. So I highly recommend you go ahead and download it if you can. This is the print button in case you really want to print it. Right here, this button, this email button, let me actually make this bigger for you guys so you can see what I'm looking at. Over on the right-hand side, it has these tools. So one of them is the Google Drive, where you can save a PDF of the article to your Google Drive. Here's where you can print it if you really want to. This one is email. This one doesn't really work. Okay, and the reason it doesn't really work is because it's going to send you the URL for the article. And 9 times out of 10, that URL will not work again. So I recommend you avoid emailing the article to yourself. As convenient as it may be, it really will not turn out to be convenient in the end. This is the add to folder button. This does not work at all. So essentially, if you had an individual subscription to EBSCO, you could go ahead and save it to your individual folder. But at WCCC, we don't have individual accounts. We have an institutional account. So you could save it to folder and then, log off and come back. It's not going to be there. So it doesn't work to save it. Now, one of the best things about using the database, in my opinion, is this button right here. And that's your Cite button. So if you click on it, I clicked on it, didn't I? Click. There we go. It gives you your citation for you for that article. Now, depending on what citation style you're using, it goes alphabetically by the citation style. And keep in mind that there are hundreds of different citation styles out there. So at the college, we use APA, American Psychological Association. So here would be your citation for the article. And we use MLA. So scroll down to MLA. And again, copy and paste that, and there's your citation for the article. The only thing I recommend is that you be extremely careful when copying, pasting, that after you've done that, you make sure that the citation actually is correct. You need to double check that citation because it's not good enough to say, well, that's what the databases gave me. Okay, that's not a valid excuse if you don't have the citation correctly. Just like if you used a web page and you used EasyBib or something to make the citation, if the citation's incorrect, that's not EasyBib's fault. That, you know, and you turn it in and you get points off. You can't blame EasyBib. You can't be like, well, that's what EasyBib told me to do. So same thing with the databases. You have to, as the student turning in the paper, double check the citation, okay? And that's very important. And that leads us actually to the last part of this presentation, which is using information legally and ethically. So right here we have Warren County Community College's academic code of conduct. Every school in the world has an academic code of conduct. And those are the academic code of conduct lists the things that you're expected as a student to either do or not do when you are a student there. So let's start out by looking at this. I highlighted the important things in red. So this main bullet point says students have an obligation to conduct their academic activities honestly and conscientiously. They should, and then down here in red, I showed you the important one, which is give appropriate recognition by name for their contributions to published material. Each course syllabus will contain the institutional policy on plagiarism. And then about halfway down, there's this caveat that says, in addition, they, meaning you, shall not, and this is a key right here, when you see words like shall not, we don't talk like that anymore. But there is one vocation that still uses shall not outside of religion, and that is lawyers, because the law is still written using these kinds of words. So when you see shall not, that's a good indication that this is a legal document that's been written and looked over by lawyers. Oh, so back to it, it says, in addition, you shall not, and here's the important red stuff, present as your own academic work ideas or work of another person without proper acknowledgement of sources. So that means you need to cite your shit. Easy enough, right? And then at the bottom, and I made this kind of in bigger letters so that stands out, violation of these rules can lead to a failure for a course and or expulsion from the college. So essentially, failure to cite your resources means that you can fail a course and or the college can kick you out. However, at Warren County Community College, we really don't want to affect your academic progress by kicking you out of school. So we will try to work with you. Each professor is allowed to set up their own academic code of conduct within their class. In other words, what they will do if they catch a student plagiarizing. Some professors will work with you and give you a second chance. Those are the nice ones. Some professors, I shouldn't say that, that's really mean. Those are the ones that are willing to work with you and give you a second chance because they recognize that you might have made a mistake. Some professors, however, will give you a 0 on a paper or an assignment if you plagiarize. Other professors will give you a 0 in the course, which means you'll have to take up the course again. And keep in mind, for all of those options, none of them are really good because now you're known as somebody who has plagiarized in the past. And what we find most often, oh, and keep in mind, plagiarism and taking other people's ideas and not giving them credit is considered stealing. Okay, it is a criminal act, and there can be criminal consequences. Most likely not, but you can lose a job, you can lose your place in school, you can lose a bunch of things personally that will mean a lot to you. So what we find is that most students at WCCC have a tendency to plagiarize accidentally. They don't know when and how to cite. They don't know how to paraphrase or summarize. Not completely sure what common knowledge is, or they recycle an old paper, which I am guilty of before I became a librarian. I had myth and culture and death and dying in the same semester. So I wrote a paper about like the underworld, the Greek underworld, and used it for both classes. I plagiarized myself, and I didn't even know it at the time. I did not get caught, which is very fortunate because that would have been bad. But at the same time, now that I know better, I see the mistake that I made and I do feel bad for it. But other students do commit deliberate plagiarism, okay? And that's when you take things directly from another source and you don't give it credit. You copy and paste a sentence here, a sentence there from another source like a web page, and that's what we call patchwork writing. Or you buy, download, or borrow, quote unquote, a paper. We see that happen as well, but most of the time we realize it's accidental plagiarism, and that's why so many professors are willing to work with you if they catch you plagiarizing. However, your best bet is to double check things and to understand how to cite things, how to paraphrase things, how to summarize things correctly before you turn an assignment in. And so what I have on the library's website, if we go back over there, and remember, you get to it by going to the main page for Warren County Community College. You click on library. So I have two tabs here that will really help you out. And it's for MLA style and APA style because each style is different in how they do things, but each of these pages are set up basically in the same way. So we're just going to click on MLA as an example. So the first page is going to give you information about that specific citation style, you know, why we do it, what it is. And on the right-hand side, you're going to have these quick links. The first one is going to be WCCC's citation format guide for whichever citation format you're using. And this is a PDF document that shows you, gives you examples at how to cite every single kind of source you're going to be using while you're a student at Warren County Community College. Everything from how to cite your Cengage books, to how to cite the journal articles you find in the databases, to how to cite web pages, YouTube videos, it's all in there. And that's true for both citation styles. Then there's this PDF here that demonstrates how to go ahead and find what you're looking for in the databases and then copy and paste that citation into a Word document. And it shows you the steps to go through for that. And those are two very, very important links that are available on the website. Next, the tab, it will be a formatting tab. And that's basically the basic format for that citation style, okay, as well as how the first page should look. So both MLA and APA are very different and very unique in how we want you to begin your first page. For APA, you will have a title page. For MLA, you have this stuff that will be on your first page of your paper. So keep in mind that each one is different, and if you are doing an APA paper, it's not okay to do an MLA setup like this for an APA paper and vice versa. Each one's different. You need to recognize the differences because you'll probably be doing both while you're a student. The third tab in either of the formatting pages includes how to do in-text citations. Okay, it shows you what an in-text citation should look like if you are directly quoting something from another source, or if you're paraphrasing from a source, or even if you're summarizing from a source. Okay, it's going to give you examples of that and give you a little bit of information about those things on the in-text citation. Keep in mind that for everything you cite in your papers, MLA and APA, you have two different types of citations. So if you have one source from the databases, let's say, you will have a citation in your references page or your works cited page, okay? But you will also have your in-text citation for that same source. So it's two different kinds of citations for every single resource you use in those papers. It's not okay to have an in-text citation and then not have it in your works cited page or your references page, or to have something on your references page or works cited page and not have it as an in-text citation. You should only be citing what you're using and vice versa. So the second or the next tab will give you, it's either going to be the works cited page or the references page. And this gives you the setup and the style of what your works cited or references page should look like. Okay, I've given you exactly how to put that together, and you can see the order, the spacing, and I've given you language here that describes that. Then you have for each one popular versus scholarly sources. That kind of explains the different kinds of sources and what they're used for. Okay, and this is a good example because most of the time you're not going to be using popular sources. You're going to be using either scholarly or professional. And again, that's the kind of sources that you find in the databases. So it just breaks that down for you and explains everything. And finally, on each citation style page, it will have a tab for direct quotes, paraphrasing, and summarizing. So this shows you kind of the difference between these three terms and what each one kind of looks like. So, and each one of these, whether you're paraphrasing, quoting, or summarizing, has to have a in-text citation. You can't paraphrase from another source without including a citation. Same thing with summarizing. Even if you're putting in your own words and you're not using a direct quote, you have to cite where you got it from. So this kind of shows you how they're used and gives you even some more resources that go into further detail. So again, like I said, that's available for MLA, and APA, again, looks the same way. Okay. Finally, I think I've gone over everything that's really important for this particular presentation. So let me just give you my final important information that I call it, and that is this is the webpage direct URL. This is the phone number for me. While we're all working from home, if you call that phone number and leave a message, I will call you back. Just indicate what time is a good time to call you back, and you know what your phone number is, and that way I will call you back. But you can also email me at wccclibrary@warren.edu, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Well, I hope you've learned something new from this presentation, or if not, you've refreshed things that you already knew. And I wish you luck. If you have any problems or any questions when it comes to researching, citations, using the web, you are more than welcome to contact me. There's no such thing as a stupid or small question. The important thing is that if you're not sure about something, don't guess and don't just come up with an answer, ask. Because that way it won't affect your final grade in the class and you'll be set. Okay, so I've even had students send me like web pages and say, hey Lisa, you know, is this a credible website, or, you know, and I'll look over it for you guys and I'll help you out with that. Or I have students send me a citation and say, Lisa, is this the correct citation? And I'll help you with that. So anything about what we discussed today, I am definitely here for you, and I will help you as much as I can from home. We can also set up, like I said, phone calls, or we can set up virtual meetings where we can go over things. Whatever is going to be most convenient for you, the library is going to be here for you. All right, so good luck, and we will talk to you later. Bye.